all ties with my family after they demanded money and humiliated me online. My spouse and I both originated from difficult circumstances. We experienced poverty in our youth, departed our homes at 18 for university, and constructed our existence independently. Financial assistance from our families was non-existent. Through dedication and wise decisions, we've established comfortable lifestyles for ourselves. We're decades dual income, no children who value experiences above material possessions. Our residence is humble, but we're passionate about traveling. Approximately 2 years ago, I began sharing travel-related content on the internet. Initially, it was purely for enjoyment, but it eventually gained popularity and started generating income, plus occasional complimentary products or accommodations. While not life-altering, it was sufficient to reduce some travel expenses and create a valuable secondary income. Since my family lives across the nation and I only visited during holidays, they remained unaware of my improved financial circumstances over the years. However, once I increased my travel content posting, everything shifted dramatically. My mother made the initial request. She required assistance with her electricity bill during winter. Being on a fixed income, I was glad to help. I transferred $300 and told her to contact me if she needed more assistance. Then my brother reached out regarding vehicle repairs, promising repayment by his next paycheck. I sent $500. A month afterward, my aunt requested help with medical expenses, so I provided $400. These requests seemed reasonable and helping others felt rewarding. Having experienced financial difficulties myself, I could now be the person who assisted others in need. Gradually, however, the nature of these requests transformed. Can you send me $200 for concert tickets? My cousin messaged. Could you help me with my credit card debt? I overspent during the sales, my sister requested. The frequency also escalated. Rather than occasional emergencies, weekly requests from various family members became the norm. My husband began to notice. They're exploiting you? He said one evening after I finished speaking with my brother, who now needed funds for a new gaming console. They see your travel posts and assume you're wealthy. Initially, I defended them. They're family members who would reciprocate if needed. He raised an eyebrow and questioned, would they really? Did they ever assist you when you were struggling? The reality was painful. During my college struggles or while working multiple jobs to afford rent in my 20s, nobody offered help. I faced eviction notices and survived on ramen for weeks without any family member checking if I needed assistance. My husband and I established a system. Any request exceeding $100 required mutual agreement, and I would prioritize only my mother's needs. Everything else would be assessed individually. The requests continued, but my responses changed. I'm sorry, I can't help with that. That's not something I can support right now. Have you explored payment plans? My family noticed. Comments began appearing on my posts. Must be pleasant to travel while your family suffers. Amusing how you forget your origins when you acquire some money. Then came the most outrageous request. My brother's fiancée contacted me directly. We've been discussing the wedding, she said. Since you're doing well financially, we thought perhaps you could fund it. Fund part of it? I asked, confused. No, cover everything completely. The entire event venue, catering, my dress, everything. I nearly dropped my phone. That would cost tens of thousands of dollars. Well, you're always traveling and staying in expensive hotels. You post all that gourmet food, you can afford it. When I refused, she was genuinely surprised. But your family? This is what family members do. My husband was furious when I informed him. They're treating you like a cash machine, not a sister or daughter. I then restricted my financial support to only my mother for emergency situations, nothing frivolous. She seemed to understand, but things felt tense. Then came the revelation that changed everything. During a conversation with my mother, she accidentally mentioned something about my cousin's new vehicle. What new vehicle? I inquired. The one you helped him purchase last month, she replied. Mom, I didn't give my cousin any money for a car. A lengthy silence followed. Then, oh, I thought he said. Well, never mind. After some pressure, the truth emerged. My mother had been dishonest about why she needed money. She had been requesting funds on behalf of other family members and distributing the cash to them after I had cut them off. I felt so betrayed. The one person I believed I could trust had been manipulating me. No more, I told her. I cannot help anymore if you're going to deceive me. The calls and messages decreased after that. I thought perhaps they had finally understood. Then my cousin, who actually does well financially but has 4 children, called me. What's this about you no longer helping your mother? He demanded. It's complicated, I replied, not wanting to air family issues. No, it's simple. She raised you and now she needs help, and you're abandoning her. She's asking me for money now and I have 4 children to feed. You don't have any. Step up and fulfill your responsibility. I tried to explain about the deception, but he interrupted me. We all need to support each other and care for those who cared for us. That's what family means. I ended the call feeling terrible. Was I truly being selfish? Had success changed me? A week later, my younger cousin, who also creates content online, made a video about people who forget their origins when they acquire money. I wouldn't have known about it except multiple family members tagged me. When I opened the comments, my heart sank. My aunt had written, I won't mention names, but it rhymes with Clara. My name is Sarah, by the way. Worse, other family members had liked it, added laughing emojis, or commented things like, facts. And we all know who this is about. That was my breaking point. I blocked every single family member and removed them from my social media. It's been a year now. Sometimes I miss them terribly, especially during holidays. I wonder if I overreacted or if I should attempt to reconcile with at least some of them. My husband believes I made the correct decision. They showed you their true nature, he says. Believe them. But there are moments when I doubt myself. These are people I grew up with, people I love despite everything. My mother is aging too, and I worry about missing her final years. So Reddit, am I the asshole for cutting off my entire family over money and social media drama? I'm curious what you think about this situation. Do you believe OP was acting like the asshole here? Or would you have done the same? Honestly, I would agree with OP's husband in this story. He said that OP gets treated by the family essentially like an ATM, and it absolutely sounds like that. So I think OP made the right decision in cutting contact with them. This isn't just some trivial social media drama. This goes much deeper than that. That was a toxic situation. A user in the comments said, not the asshole. Family doesn't treat each other like walking ATMs. You tried to help when you could, set boundaries when needed, and they responded by publicly mocking you. You don't owe them anything, especially not tens of thousands for a wedding. The entitlement is astounding. Another person said, not the asshole. Ask yourself, if you lost everything tomorrow, would these family members even help you? From what you described, they would be the first to laugh at your downfall. That's not family. Comment number 3. Everyone sucks here. While your family's behavior is clearly entitled and manipulative, cutting everyone off completely might be an overreaction. Your mother betrayed your trust, and that's inexcusable. But, and it's always the but, guys, it just always is. Nothing good comes after a but in 90% of cases. Anyway, but a total family exile punishes even relatives who might not have been directly involved. Also, the public mockery was childish and hurtful, absolutely. But instead of blocking everyone instantly, a frank conversation setting firm boundaries might have preserved relationships with at least a few decent family members. Family dynamics are rarely black and white. They were wrong to treat you like an ATM, but completely shutting the door on potential reconciliation with everyone seems harsh. Maybe consider allowing contact with those who demonstrate genuine respect for your boundaries. If you were in OP's shoes, would you ever try to potentially reconcile with any member of this family? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video because that helps me tremendously. Reaching 1,000 likes would be absolutely amazing. My life hasn't been easy. Just when I thought I had finally found peace, a post that a friend made online brought everything crashing down around me. For context, I'm 29 years old and I departed home when I was 16. I ended up living with friends or in shelters until I earned enough money to finally rent an apartment. I worked lengthy days, often maintaining 2 or 3 jobs simultaneously. I hadn't performed well in school and didn't obtain my high school diploma, which meant fewer opportunities were available to me. But I managed by washing dishes, cleaning restrooms, and performing other tasks that many consider undesirable. One day things changed when I assisted an elderly man jump-start his truck. He would come into the city to run errands, and had been in such a hurry to make an appointment that he'd forgotten to turn off his headlights, causing the battery to drain. We began talking and I discovered he was a farmer looking for help. His job offer included a place to stay in a small cabin on the farm. I sublet my apartment for the duration of my lease and left my city jobs to go live on his farm. I knew it would be difficult work, but the prospect of living rent-free, not having to wonder where my next meal would come from, and getting to work with animals in the open air appealed to me. I was 20 when I went to work on the farm. Fast forward 5 years and the farm owner passed away. I wondered who would inherit the ranch, if they would still employ me, and if they didn't, I hoped I would be able to find work on another farm or ranch, because it was something I genuinely enjoyed. I was asked to attend the will reading and wondered why, but went along anyway. I was stunned when I was told that I was the new owner of the farm. I had known that Mr. Mickey didn't have children, but I'd expected there would be some relatives somewhere to take it over. But it turned out he only had some cousins, many of them middle-aged or older. He gifted them some family heirlooms and other personal mementos, but the farm actually went to me. I'm a man who doesn't typically cry, but I did that day. I went to work ensuring everything ran smoothly on the farm. I moved into the main house and hired a farmhand to help me. I loved working close to the land and felt extremely fortunate to be there. Things were going well until I offered to host a friend's bachelor party at the farm. I'm not someone who has much use for the internet and social media. I used it somewhat but kept a fairly low profile, mostly just using the messaging features to keep in touch with a few friends I had managed to maintain over the years. However, photos of the bachelor party were shared frequently, and word of them reached my parents and brothers, whom I hadn't had contact with in over a decade. Other than perhaps an occasional online message, I'd never shared pictures of the farm or let them know that I'd finally found a good life. But now that they knew I had, they wanted a piece of it, if not all of it. They believed my younger brother was entitled to my little piece of paradise. My parents had not been good to me growing up. They had always favored my brother. He had been successful in school and had won awards, which impressed them, unlike me, who had struggled academically. I'd never been skilled at sports either, and so my dad, who loved football, hadn't been able to bond with me on that front either. It had been a toxic household, and living in shelters or on friends' couches hadn't been better for me. When I gathered the courage to leave at 16, I could be bitter about my upbringing, but I put that behind me long ago because I believed that if I hadn't left, I may never have met Mr. McKay and ended up on the farm. My brother and parents began messaging me constantly, asking to visit the farm. I didn't want to see them, and after so many years, they really didn't mean much to me anymore. But I hoped that if they saw how far from the city my home was, maybe they'd stop bothering me. I agreed they could come, but they would have to stay in a hotel if they planned to stay overnight. They reluctantly agreed, despite saying I likely had tons of rooms and was just being selfish, making them spend money on their trip. "It's too nice a place for you to have all by yourself," said my mother when she arrived. "Besides, your brother is much smarter than you. He would be better suited to run this place. He could take it to another level with his business sense. I may not be the best at reading and writing," I replied, "but I've managed just fine here. I don't need to be giving it to my brother or anyone else." MFK figured I was smart enough to own the farm, and I planned to continue doing so. "Come on, Sean," said my brother. "We could fire your farmhand, and you could do all that work for me, while I figure out a way to make this place better. You have fences that are missing paint and trees that are scraggly, so you're not really managing all that well, are you?" It was true there were some things that still needed work around the farm, but it wasn't because I couldn't do it. There were just many things to manage, and my farmhand and I prioritized the most important ones. However, I didn't tell that to my family. They looked down on me for the small things they felt were wrong. They couldn't be happy that there were many things actually going well, like the animals in the barn and chicken coop, that were happy and healthy because of the care I helped provide. My parents tried to guilt-trip me into giving up what was rightfully mine, what I had earned without any help from them. But I was stronger than I was growing up. This time I was able to tell them no. However, that began a long reign of terror. The next thing I knew, lies were being spread about me in my town, and someone tried to break into my home. However, they didn't succeed because the motion detectors in the yard went off. I have these mostly to alert me to predators that could harm my animals, but this time they worked on the two-legged variety too. I asked them to stop and just let me lead my life. I told them my brother was educated and could find a job on his own, and that he didn't really need my farm. I decided to consult a lawyer to see if they could help protect me from my family. My brother and parents constantly told me my farm belonged to them, and that they were going to get it. I needed to be sure I was legally protected, and that they didn't have a way of taking it away from me in some underhanded way. I also filed a police report and restraining order to keep my parents and brother from being able to contact me, because I had tried just blocking their phone numbers and social media, but they kept creating fake ones or having friends contact me, so I'd had enough. I didn't want to be bothered every time my phone made a noise, thinking it had to do with them. However, they still found a way to contact me. They would mail me letters telling me how much they needed the farm, and that it wasn't like they were going to kick me out. I could still look after the animals because they stunk, and my brother wasn't someone who should get his clothing dirty. "Do they think a farm is a toy?" I asked my lawyer. "Don't let them get to you," said my lawyer. "They're trying to intimidate you. We can go to the police with the letters and have your family arrested for violating the restraining order if you want to." "Well, I don't really want to," I said, "but I think I need to." So that's how my parents ended up going to jail for a night before getting released. A few months later, after their names appeared on some tax documents showing they were committing tax fraud, it turned out they were hoping my farm could become part of their scheme, and they could funnel losses through it. It turned out that despite my brother being academically intelligent, he had made some poor business decisions and had gotten in over his head. He had always had a sense of entitlement, but this time demanding he was right wasn't going to save him, and as my parents had been in business with him and knew about it, they were also charged by the IRS. They all ended up getting sentenced to jail, and that meant I was free to go back to my life on the farm without them bothering me. "How could you?" screamed my parents in the courtroom as they were taken away. "You destroyed your family? You're worthless and have always been and always will be." I had chosen to go to their trial hoping it would give me closure. I'm not sure if it did much for me, especially with what they had shouted at the end of the trial. However, I knew I had to let the past stay there because otherwise I wouldn't be able to bring myself any peace, and I deserved to be happy too. I had worked too hard trying to look after myself to let them make me feel bad for their decisions. A few months later, I ended up meeting a lovely woman whom I planned to ask to be my wife. I've been living happily on my farm, and with Beth by my side, we are working on painting fences and tidying up the orchard. I've also hired a second farmhand, and things are going better than ever for me. I learned that family isn't about blood, it's about the people you choose to surround yourself with. And even though I grew up in a toxic situation, it doesn't mean I have to be part of one. And one day, if I have children, I plan to do things differently so they never have to go through what I did. I don't want them to run away from home and need to rely on friends and shelters to get their footing. Also, I hope they can always feel like the farm is a place for them. And who knows, maybe someday we will be able to expand to a place that can sustain more than one generation. I have a dear friend, Shannon's fake name, in her early 60s. As a toddler, her parents divorced and her father remarried a petty woman, Cruella, who wanted him to sever ties with Shannon. They still managed a relationship, but not as close as it should have been during her formative years. Shannon married young and struggled significantly but raised her 3 daughters into young women, who all now have families of their own. Shannon is now a proud grandmother and great-grandmother. But back to Cruella. When Shannon was still in her 20s and had left her first husband, a cheater and criminal, for her own sanity and the safety of herself and her daughters, her father had told her to come home and he would help her with a place to stay. Upon arrival, Cruella, who controlled the finances, said she was unwelcome and on her own. Shannon figured it out, and again the girls grew up healthy and loved, and Shannon remarried a loving man. But for 30 years she was never allowed to visit her father for Christmas or holidays or birthdays. Cruella died this year. Shannon was invited for Christmas, and her father surprised her by letting her know he was paying off her mortgage. It could never make up for not being there when she was younger, but it could give her some comfort now that she's retired. However, when they went to the bank today, she learned where the money came from. It's Cruella's life insurance payout. Cruella would roll over in her grave if she knew her life insurance went to pay off the house of the stepdaughter she wanted to deny existed for nearly her whole life. If you've watched until here and enjoy my daily content, then please don't forget to like the video, and maybe even post a comment, since that would help me tremendously in defeating the stupid YouTube algorithm. When I was younger, around a decade ago, I used to love two things: cars and roads, and still to this day I love cars, but the way I loved roads was through maps. My favorite activity when I was bored was to go on the Maps app and look at the highways that surrounded my area. My oldest sister at the time was the only sibling of mine who had a license. One summer day, she was bored and decided to take me and her boyfriend to an amusement park an hour and a half away from home. The story begins on the way back. My father needed the car at the dealership as it was scheduled to have routine maintenance done the next morning. My father sent her the address of the dealership and requested that she drop the car off, and he would go and pick us up at the dealer. Now that the context is out of the way, here's where my sister made a mistake. She typed in the address and clicked on the nearest place with that road. The issue is that the nearest place with that road was a town going an hour in the opposite direction. She gets onto a road I'll call State Row 100. This intersects with Interstate 1, which we were supposed to get onto. When she passes the highway, this following interaction ensues: me. You were supposed to make that right. Heard that's not what the map says. 5 minutes later, I say again, we are heading in the wrong direction. This doesn't go home. Her, maybe it's an alternate route that's faster. Me, I don't think a road going in the opposite direction is faster. She cut me off. Her, now annoyed, listen, I'm gonna focus on what the map says, not on you. Just stop already. And with that, I followed her instruction. After all, why would I complain about going a road I'd never been on? From what I remember, after that we stopped for gas about half an hour in. My sister was still convinced we were going in the right direction, but why should I correct her? She's listening to the map after all. The fallout: we hit an expressway and my sister is convinced we made it home and is pleased with herself. This was until an overhead sign said, Town B Regional Airport 1 mile. At this point, my sister realized her mistake. She starts freaking out, saying, I didn't know this road went here. I was following the map. OP, why didn't you tell me we were going the wrong way? I was scared of her getting mad at me, so I just said, after you told me to stop, I just stopped paying attention to where you were going. She eventually pulled into a gas station and saw where she had set her GPS to. After correcting her mistake, we headed in the opposite direction. Although the car ride was rather silent, we eventually saw signs for the amusement park we started at because she had to turn left at the road I originally told her to turn right. And that's how I turned a drive that was supposed to be an hour and a half into a 3.5-hour journey. Years have passed since this happened, and I told my father, who thought it was hysterical. I often consider telling my sister, but we sadly rarely speak anymore. Thank you for reading. Have a happy new year. Before we end the video, we'll read one last petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. It's titled, She Stole My Snack and I Swapped It for Spicy. And we have a snack thief at work. The fridge is shared, so stuff goes missing sometimes, but my stuff kept vanishing. Always the chips, never the sandwich. Never the fruit, just the snacks. At first I thought maybe someone grabbed it by mistake, but it kept happening: the same brand, the same time of day, and I'm 99% sure it was one specific coworker who always stayed late and forgot her lunch. So I grabbed a bag of ghost pepper chips, and emptied them into my usual chip bag, sealed it back up nice and neat, stuck it in my lunchbox like nothing changed. Around 100 p.m. I hear this loud coughing fit in the break room, like full-on choking, water being poured out, someone trying not to die. She then comes back red-faced, watery eyes and totally silent, didn't even look at me. Sat at her desk the rest of the day not saying a word. I nearly choked on my food trying not to laugh. I haven't lost a snack since then. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again